Well, hello and welcome to PM Express. And what else can we talk about other than the 2018 mid-year budget review? But you know what? We have heard from the politicians. We have heard from both sides, the minority and the majority. And there are some of you who are just simple Ghanaians who sometimes are just wondering who at all is spewing the fact. You know, if I were to make a decision, what do I do? Was it a good review? Was it a bad review? And so, since morning, that's all you've been fed off. So this evening, I have to respect you, bring you academicians, people from academia, to just come and say, look, where do we stand with regards to what it is the finance minister said? And that's exactly what I have for you. Two fine academicians to delve into the issue and ask, was it factual? Was it just grammar? Is it good? Is it bad? Who knows? Within the next hour, we will be educated. My name is Nana Ansakwa IV, Chief of the Little Republic, the only republic within the republic. When I come back, we're looking at the mid-year review. Was it good or was it bad? Don't go away. Well, thank you very much for staying with me in studio. No stranger to the show at all, Dr. Lord Mensah, Senior Lecturer, University of Ghana Business School. Doc, you're welcome.
Thank you, Nana.
And then joining us via Skype is Dr. Eric Osei, SCB Senior Lecturer, Economics Department, University of Ghana, and you know, an usher in my church, so he's my church mate as well. Doc, you're welcome. Doc, you're welcome.
Thank you, Nana.
Very, very good. I know Doc is not in Ghana, somewhere in the world, but through the magic of communication, we're able to get him to join the show. I will start with studio, Dr. Lord Mensah, just get preliminary comments on the budget or the media review. What did you think? As a citizen of Ghana, that's your finance minister, you know, giving you a rundown.
Yeah, if you ask me, basic, you know, budget, my target is the fiscal deficit. And I could see some kind of determination in there that the finance minister is bent on hitting the target at the end of the year. Even though he indicated in the review that, you know, we struggled in terms of our revenue, the same way, you know, that revenue struggle brought about, you know, cutting down expenditure in that direction. And therefore, going forward, you know, the measures that are going to be put in place to ensure that we can generate enough, and then also to meet the necessary expenditure that it will meet the government, you know, projects for the country. If you ask me, I would say that it's kind of a budget that is a review that is more friendly. I mean, it brings about clear future to Ghanaians as to how things are going to look like in the next 6 months. Because this is a government that is able to determine that, fine, we are struggling in terms of revenue generation, therefore expenditure needs to be cut. So if you look at both ends, revenue shortfall was about 1 million Ghana cedis, 1 billion Ghana cedis, and that of the expenditure as well. And so therefore financing this gap is what they propose some measures. And you could see some punitive measures that were coming up, you know, punishments that are going to be introduced when you fault in your tax payment and all those, and then the mechanisms that are going to be put in place to ensure that we can do some legwork to collect more revenue. And I presume that it paints a very good picture for Ghanaians. But then what I get worried about is the way we present some of the indicators. So for instance, when we talk about a threshold of getting your engine capacity of about 3 cc.
We'll come there.
Right, that's fine.
We'll definitely get there. Let me go to Dr. Osei Asibe. Dr. Asibe, plenary comments on the budget. If you let me hear what you thought of the budget, or the media review, if I may put it.
Thank you, Nana, and good evening to my colleague. And then to your cherished listeners. Yes, I think the budget, or should we say the budget review, was quite reassuring. I mean, it gives the market some kind of hope in the fact that the finance minister is actually putting together measures to make sure that solidify the macro fundamentals by way of bringing out some innovative measures to bring revenue and also some financial controls. Although there are still some changes that the economy is still in under, but large, I think that budget or the review act was done. It presents some, and I believe that the market is going to respond positively to it. If we are to go to detail, I'm sure to the measures, right? Looking at the performance of the economy that we have, you're looking at the fact that inflation is on a downward trend. You're looking at the fact that interest rate is coming down. We have experienced some kind of volatility in the exchange rate, but that is seen more as transitory shock, and we that will stabilize. The finance actually attributed that shock. That is by and large true. I also think that the too long in intervening in the market, allowing the city to fall freely. We've seen that the trade balance is improving. We have now a surplus, is even bigger than last year. And recording a surplus actually means that you're going to have enough reserves in your international buffer to support currency, which is good compared to having a stable currency. Also having growth actually picking up, a report of growth in the first quarter of the year of about 6.3%, which is quite good. And if that maintains, we are likely to have a growth rate of about 7% this year. So by and large, all things being together constant, I would say that was a review, and can only be hopeful that the targets that have been set be achieved at the end of the day.
Doc, thank you very much. Let me come to Dr. Lord Mensah. I just want to pick up on something that Dr. Sibe said, that I believe the market will respond. You know, does our market ever respond to these tweaks? Because every time, you know, you see finance ministers always trying to tweak here, tax here, do this, hoping that, you know, something would happen. But
yes, very good. I mean, you know, the market reaction, you know, does not come immediately, you know. Normally, I always say that there's always a lead, you know, effect and a lag effect. When you talk about macroeconomic sources, it does not instantly build up into the people's pocket. The reason why I'm saying this is that, let's take, for instance, interest rate has shown a downward trend. Now, it took 1 year for interest rate to start coming down. And within that 1 year, we've seen, you know, a serious, you know, dip in the interest rate. Now, but then in the past, you realize that for 5 continuous years, interest rate kept on going up. Now, just 1 year for interest rate to come down if you're a bank manager or you're managing an institution that is, taking people's deposit, you might not want to start giving out loans because you want to be sure whether that downwards, trend can give you that consistent 5 years, or maybe 3 years or 2 years for you to act. But then when it was going up, it took 5 years. We realized it. So why don't I wait to see the consistency before? That is one of the ways of managing, macroeconomic risk. So the market will not respond immediately. So now that we've seen some macro successes, inflation has been coming down. It's recently that we saw, our exchange rate, he was talking about that, started showing some signals, and I will explain the reason why, it has started, depreciating as it's supposed to be. But then the bank manager who is managing people's funds would like to wait. Look at how consistent these, favorable economic conditions are going to be. The sustainability is very, very important before they can start thinking about giving out funds. Remember, they are managing people's deposit, and the little exposure can collapse the whole financial system. So one of the ways of managing, risk is to make sure that that kind of favorable environment that is being enjoyed is sustainable. So normally, you will say that finance minister is trying to, hold up taxes here, trying to make sure that we get stability in our exchange rate. How are the people feeling it in their pocket? It's not a contemporaneous feeling. It comes with some, lag effect. In this case, the macroeconomy will lead, the micro. Let me put it that way. The micro is when the households, start feeling the economy in their pocket. So, Nana, I will say that because of time difference, that is why, when the macro picks up, it does not necessarily build up into people's pocket instantly. However, the government can intervene to speed up that, transition, to ensure that the success that we've chalked, directly goes into people's pocket. That is why when there was a suggestion that taxes are going to be introduced, I indicated that it can derail, that transition that we are hoping for. Because when you introduce taxes, it directly goes into prices. Because obviously, if I'm going to buy something and I'm coming to resell it and a tax has been slapped on it, you don't expect me to sell it the same price that, I bought the item for. So in the end, I will make sure that the consumer bears that branch of what? The tax increase. So prices start going up. Now, when prices start going up, what will you do? I mean, as economic manager, it gives you a signal of inflation. So all the inflation that we've been enjoying coming down now start going up again. Now, when inflation starts showing upward trend, the Monetary Policy Committee meets quarterly. So they look at the market, prices are going up. So let's catch up prices. So they start increasing interest rate. So you see that interest rates start going up again. So in the end, you've started derailing what? That macroeconomic success that we've enjoyed. So it won't take instant, kind of, like I said, the government can intervene by using social policies. We call it economic catalyst, to make sure that they speed up that process of transforming the economy into their citizenry life. In that process, something like social intervention like free SHS is one of them. It's a way of trying to make sure that the macroeconomy that we are enjoying in terms of stability, fiscal, financial discipline, we are able to, keep some funds purposely for what? That social, intervention. So it's a way, one of the ways of what? Making sure that the macro success has been transferred into the people's life.
Okay. Yeah. Dr. Sasibe.
Yeah, no.
Doc, from the days of Achampong, when budgets were read, we were told that milk will be 2 cedis, Milo will be 2 cedis, 50 pesos, sugar will be 3 cedis. They gave us prices of everything. I know you're economic, but let me take you a bit into sociology. So then, so now, when percentages and stuff are thrown at us, we become impatient. We want to see the thing overnight, and then the economy say, "Oh, hold on, it hasn't got into your pocket yet." When, but we were brought up with, when we were told that, well, milk is now 10 pesos more, and petrol was now 20 pesos more, and meat was now all the prices. We were told how much prices were. Should there be some sort of an education or something for us to know that, okay, if the finance minister comes to deliver, you need to give a year and a half or 2 years so that we realize something? Because as soon as you take the microphones out, everybody is in a hurry. Look, I'm not feeling it. It's not in my pocket. I can't see anything. Where's the misunderstanding or the gap coming from?
Well, of course, I agree with you when he said that there's a time lag that actually delays the impact of such macroeconomic policy. I think I'm also right with there should be some kind of education that people should be well educated about how the macroeconomic policies translate into them, meaning that how you feel the impact of macroeconomic policy. Of course, it comes in several levels. One of it is, the one that the finance minister just did in the budget and give some kind of assurance and have some immediate economy through expectations management and confidence that people begin to have the economy. So although it may take a while for the impact to be felt, if the announcement is good, by that announcement, there can be some positive gain on the economy. For example, there may be some investors who are on the fence and don't know what really could happen. But the fact that they know that our government has decided to spend and to inject some capital expenditure into the economy, or government has decided to raise revenue, and therefore inflation and ISA go down, it immediately gives them funds in the economy, and they need to release funds, invest in the economy to employ people, and also and give income to the people. If inflation used to be around 17.5%, which we did about 2 years ago, and now it is up 10%, you may not see it, but it's a lot in your pocket. It means that you are no longer spending your money as quickly as you have been spending when inflation is 70%. Now, the rate at which your money leaves your pocket has slowed significantly, which then means that you are making savings, but you don't feel it. So inflation is very important when we're talking about saving or having money. Okay.
Doc, let me hold you there and and correct the sound, because
inflation is, it means that more money into your pocket.
Doc, let me cut in and correct the sound, because I'm getting messages that the sound is really cutting. So if they can rectify the sound for us. But Dr. Mensah, one of the two of the major contenders in here are the 2.5 flat rate of interest that's been slapped on NHIS and GETFund, and then there's the other 3. The tax on 3.5 liters and above, which is based on luxury.
The engine capacity.
Engine capacity based on luxury. Now I know you have a little bit.
Yes. If you ask me, I won't use engine capacity to determine how luxurious, a car can be, in a sense that if you're looking at a car, the add-ons that makes a car luxury, engine is not part of it. Anything that can give you a quick sense to communicate to the car is what we look at it as luxury. Now, if you take engine capacity, it's one of the basics, because if the car has to take you to maybe somewhere in my village, Takoradi, you know, that car, whether 4.5, 1.5, 3.0, it will still take you there. These are basics in cars. I think the customs, you know, Ghana, they have, you know, indicators for luxury cars. Because when you're importing car, they saw that they look at the interior and some of the bottoms in there, and they indicate that this car is a luxury car, so they slap some extra tax on it. We should have looked at that rather, instead of using the engine capacity. I looked at that to be more or less like a pollution or, you know, climate tax, or maybe emission tax, CO2 tax. Because the bigger the engine, the more, you know, you're going to emit, you know, gases. So if you're polluting the environment as a result of using big engine, you know. And then secondly, most people are using these cars not because they are luxury. It's because our roads are not good. You see, if you take where I live, from the West Coast Mall all the way up there to, you know, we call the place Cassava Farms, New Botiano area, the road is very bumpy. I'm using that car because if I use saloon car now, it won't last me more than 2 years. I have to start,
when it rains, you'll be stuck.
I mean, so most people are using those cars because, you know, they are up. It can fit the road, not necessarily because they are luxury. So using, you know, the capacity, engine capacity, to define how luxurious the car will be, I hold a different view on that. I think they should go back to the custom services. They know how to identify,
because it's luxury
car.
But so, if they were to change it to emissions, I mean, would you be okay with emissions?
Yeah, I should be fine, because emission, I mean, taxes are being paid elsewhere. I mean, there's nothing wrong with that. Using a big engine, and in the end, you are polluting the environment very well.
No, but in our case, when the same guy hasn't provided you a road to go to your house, and I remember once upon a time, you know, from Akosombo to Dumasa, when it rained, it was a no-go area. It was literally, you can't go.
Yes.
So on a road like that, where you can't drive a Tico, you know, it had to be a bigger car. Yeah. Are they being unfair? I don't know.
For that side, I saw it to be a bit unfair, because I'm driving 3.6cc, this Highlander, and trust me, it's not as a result of luxury that I bought a car. It's a necessity for me, looking at where I live, you know, and the distance I apply to, you know, work every time at Legon, you know, to my house. So I don't see that to be more of luxury, you know, and I presume it's the same way most people will feel in their life. And the four-wheel drives are dominating the environment because, you know, the 3.5 and above, you know, most cars that are four-wheel comes with that engine capacity. And they are dominating the Ghanaian market because, you know, people knows the roads that we drive on, and in the end, we need bigger cars. So I think they should rename it as emission tax, and I will be comfortable with that, because I'm using a bigger engine, and at the end of the day, I pollute the environment more. So at the end of the day, if I'm supposed to pay for that ozone layer, you know, distortion, I think I should be comfortable with that.
Okay, and we'll take a quick break, and then when we come back, we're also going to look at those of you who are earning 10,000 cedis per month and above, and then we'll look at this 2.5, the understanding, the VAT, which is coming backdoor. Don't go away. Well, thank you very much for staying, and we're discussing the mid-year review on the budget, and with regards to the NHIL 2.5 and GETFund 2.5, this is how the minority looks at it. It says the government has not increased VAT as earlier speculated, but the truth is that the tax has gone up. VAT was 17.5, comprising VAT at 12.5, NHIL at 2.5, GETFund at 2.5. Now, NHIL and GETFund levy have been decoupled from VAT and made flat rate of same 2.5% each. The difference is that at first both were value-added tax, but now the 2.5 will be paid on the full cost. Yeah. It's like paying 2.5% on your net income and now having to pay 2.5% on your gross income. Obviously, paying 2.5% on your gross will result in you having to pay much more. Sure. Doc, so it's like the big argument where some Christians say, oh, well, Christians are not supposed to pay tithe, but you're supposed to give. Either way, sure. you are giving, whether it's tithe, whether it's giving. Yeah. So, I mean, what's happening here? Is it, you know,
yeah, what's happening here is that, you see, the finance minister realized that some tax rebate that was given in the earlier budget, somewhere 2017, you know, kicked against our revenue base, you know, about $1 billion, you know, Ghana cedis. And so,
but the argument is that even though they reduced nuisance taxes, they got more.
No, by that time, it affected our revenue base. It affected our revenue base. So obviously, as a manager of the economy, you need to find an innovative way of generating more. So in the end, you know, coming to test the pulse of Ghanaians by rolling out, are you prepared to pay more taxes? And Ghanaians indicated clearly that they are not prepared to pay any more taxes. Then there should be re-engineering of, you know, how I can still squeeze money out of the system, you know. So more or less paying, you know, 2.5 on an additional value, okay, of a transaction is different from paying a flat of 2.5. It's clear. So for instance, if I'm doing a transaction in the old, you know, system, if I'm doing a transaction and the transaction is, let's say, I'm buying something 100 Ghana and I decide to sell it 120, I pay tax on the 20 Ghana. But with the current, you know, operations, okay, what is going to happen is that whatever I purchase, right, and I sell, that 120 is what I'm going to pay the tax on. That 2.5 on. So in the end, I'll pay more than what was being paid earlier. And it's clear. But for me, it's an innovative way of, you know, generating revenue for the nation. I won't fault that, because coming to hit you a direct tax, you might find it difficult to pay. So if I come in an indirect form, more or less, it's the same way, you know, to generate revenue. But then, let's look at how these monies are going to be used purposefully. And I think on paper, like you said earlier, you know, it shows that, you know, the taxes are going to do something good. And then it even indicating mechanisms that we can use to, you know, enhance compliance, you know. And it was clear in the budget. We are all happy with that. But then the uses of this, you know, funds that comes is what gets us, you know, worried as Kenyans. I always say that, you know, taxes are not bad. You know, if you can get benefit from what you pay. You can't be paying taxes when your roads are not good every time. Ghanaians will always run away from taxes because the basics that they're supposed to have in their life, they're not getting it. Healthcare, you know, the NHIS part of it is 2.5, right? Now, the facilities we have, looking at our ambulance system, looking at, what do you call it, in terms of having, you know, a friendly health, you know, service. We don't have it. So if I'm going to pay 2.5 off that flat rate, I'll ask myself, what do I gain from this? Is it to buy V8 to decorate our leaders? You know, but we have a history. The history, you know, the way we decorate our chiefs, right? It's the same way that has to be transferred. We decorate our chiefs very well, right? So when we come to the white man's chief, we need to decorate the white man's chief very well.
I'll come back to you. Right. Here we have Dr. Say Sibe with a much better line too. Dr. Sibe.
Hello.
Doc, you know, the minority is quite disappointed with regards to the 2.5 flat, which is now, you know, on the whole item rather than the value added, making it, you know, much, much more than even what they predicted. I mean, do you think it was an unfair way to sneak in this VAT and rename it?
Well, it's interesting, but I mean, whatever be the case, we're made to understand that the finance minister was going to come out with an innovative tax measures to raise more revenue. And so we shouldn't be surprised about these announcements, because it was very clear from the beginning that the tax rate was not going to increase, but we're going to implement more innovative measures to ensure that the tax bill and the tax effort actually bring in more revenue. And so for me, it doesn't really matter how you do it. What is important is that at the end of the day, should have enough revenue to execute the budget. I'm going to look at this 2.5% flat that the finance minister spoke about. I mean, it's as of now, it is not too clear how the thing was executed. But if you look at the whole VAT system, VAT is input-output structure. And so what means really is that it's going to impact more on businesses other than consumers. Therefore, it may not necessarily translate into higher prices, because for the producers, with the 17.5%, if they buy inputs, they pay tax of 17.5%. Now, when they finish their final product, and they sell, for example, if their input cost was 100, they pay a tax 17.5% on it. Okay. Now, if they finish their final product and sell 200, they will collect a tax of, say, 35 point something or 35%. Now, per VAT, they have to remit 17.5% to government, because they are already paid 17.5 on their purchases or on their input. They have to deduct the rest. That is why it's for value added. Now, this time, what the new measures is, as I understand from tax experts, is that instead of 17.5% to government, you are now going to deduct just 12.5 from it, 12.5 from it, and then remit about 22 point something to government, because the 5%, which is made up of the NHIL and the GETFund, is now non-deductible. You cannot deduct it now, because it's now a flat rate. It's no longer a value-added tax. So what that means is that the government is going to get, instead of getting 17.5%, to get 2.5%. And the producer is going to bear a little more costs. Instead of deducting 17.5%, now he's only going to deduct 4%. So which means that it's going to increase marginal aid cost production, reduce its margin. Now, this arrangement may not necessarily lead to higher pricing, because it will depend upon the good impression. If the goods we are talking about, is highly profit lasting, which means that when you change the price, people are not buying more of it. The producer may not be able to, shift the tax on the consumer. So the producer will have to absorb it into his profit, or their profit margin reduced. On the other hand, if highly priced product, which means that a change in price will not really result in quantity demanded falling, then producers will have the power to shift the tax burden on the consumer. So the final impact, net impact, cannot be known now, and it will also vary widely across products. And therefore, I don't think it's a bad idea at all, because if you look at of this 2.5 that proposed, the GETFund one actually not part of the law, it was part of the VAT system. unlike the NHIL of the NHIL law. So now what the government is doing is let's separate, let's make the flat rate, that even where we are giving a concession, we will not give concession. We only give a concession on the top, which is the actual value of the cost.
Okay.
So that's what. So it may not necessarily higher prices.
Well, thank you very much there. Let's move on to the next one, which is the income tax bracket, where if you earn more than 10,000, you are asked to pay 35%. But I was listening to commentary, and apparently, now if you just say you earn 12,000 cedis, it's the 2,000 that you pay the 35% on, and not on the 12,000.
Well, if I should read what is here, Ghana has different income tax bands. It's about 5 of them. If this one should kick in, then it's going to be more or less the
6th band.
The 6th band, and going beyond, that's how it's a progressive kind of tax. So you go beyond that threshold, that excess is what you pay the 35% on. Not necessarily the 35, the 10,000. So from your example, if you have, you are earning 12,000 per month, then it means the first 10,000 will be taxed normal.
25%?
Yes. Then beyond that, you pay 35%. Yes. So that is how it has been calibrated.
Well, I mean, it's a very kind way. The reason I'm saying that because I know, like in the UK, when you get to the threshold, it affects everything from 0. So it could be just £1 added to your wages, and the whole wage will be taxed into the next bracket. They wouldn't say that, oh well, because your first 2,000 you are 2%, and then your next 2,000 they will tax that 2,000 at this rate. Because as soon as you switch on, the whole income gets affected.
Yes, you're right. But then in such an environment, you should know the income structures, and then the purchasing power of their income. In our environment, it's not like that. The 10,000 that you are earning in dollar terms is just something, small. So at the end of the day, you cannot use the same structures here.
It will be too cruel.
So yes, so you need to be a bit friendly in terms of taxation, so that people can keep their homes here and there.
But are you for it, or do you think?
Yeah, like I indicated earlier, my position on taxes has been that, the government should generate more. And bearing all those resources that we have, human resource is part of it. The resources. If you want to tie development, for instance, free SHS, which is a purely socially oriented, what do you call it, policy, and it comes with investment, which the government is doing. Those investment is tied to, the number of kids that are, being given birth to, and you have, a country where you have about only 40% of the capable, total numbers who can pay tax are paying tax. Then obviously you might be careful how you raise money to finance such policies. So I have never kicked against taxes. I'm always going for taxes, but then my target is that the only way we can finance some of the social policies is through taxes. We cannot tie those policies to our natural resource. If we tie it to petrol, obviously petrol will deplete over time. So the possible means is to make sure that we raise money through the human resource capacity, and that is through taxes.
Let me come back to you. I'll go to Dr. Sibe. It's calling from the other side of literally midnight. So let's wrap up with him and let him go. Dr. Sibe, a big question, but just a small time to answer is, if we look at the revenue challenges, the size of the economy and everything, are we giving too many freebies? Free school, free hospital, free dams, free, I mean, are there too many frees considering the size of our economy and the lack of revenue generation?
Well, to a large extent, yes, particularly when you are not able to generate more revenue. In economic management, you must always balance your efficiency with equity. You cannot only looking at the efficiency side, looking at economic management without thinking about the deprived society, those that will be affected by macroeconomic policies. You need to have an inclusive policies, not everyone on board. And so much as you are thinking about those strategies, thinking about macroeconomic stability strategies, you must also have in place a way that you significantly reduce inequality gap, in order that, as the finance said, you don't leave any as also it is articulated in the sustainable development goal. And so you need to have a plan. But like I always say, any social policy, somebody has to bear either directly or indirectly. And who has to bear it? That's citizens. The citizens, government does not manufacture funds. It is the citizens that pay taxes to actually finance government activities. So if government is rolling out social policy, it is either the citizens that are paid directly through fees, or they will pay indirectly through the system. And so any type of social policies being rolled, like we have in advanced countries, you realize the tax system is such that the people are well taxed to be able to sustainably finance such projects. And therefore, it is surprising that we are having these policies. There is a need for distribution of taxes or income, so that you make sure that you have enough revenue to be able to sustain these social policies. Otherwise, it will never going to be sustainable. So we cannot have our cake and eat. And once we are enjoying all the freebies, we should also know that then we have to meet social responsibilities ourselves, making sure that our tax as
Dr. Sibe, thank you very much for that input. Thank you so much. Coming to studios, Doc, I want to put the same question to you, but I will add that, you know, Doc is saying that these things would have to be paid by citizens, but there aren't enough citizens in Ghana. If you know what I mean.
There are.
Well, there aren't enough.
You see,
Doctor, there's just a few people in
who
this,
are paying the taxes.
So
we understand that bit of it. That is why, in the finance minister's engineering own way, financial engineering own way, is able to, you know, find a way to introduce the taxes in such a way that even though individuals that pays the same taxes continues to bear the brunt of paying taxes every night, whether direct or indirect, it's the same set of people who are paying. But then we can also not run away from the fact that social policies are tied to population, right? So population increases. So that means financing it should come from the, you know, the populace. So it tells you that, you know, it's through taxes that we can finance some of these, you know, social policies. Now, I can also tell you that these policies are in line with, you know, the Sustainable Development Goals, which, you know, stresses on inclusive growth, you know, growth that encompasses, you know, everybody. We dub it pro-poor growth, you know, where everybody is part of the growth. Now, this policy could have been deferred. You know, if I say defer, meaning...
Could it have been targeted?
It could have been targeted, but
so
then...
that my kids don't fall in that bracket, maybe yours, but, you know, Joe
But
blocks
like
down
I
the
said,
roads.
you know, the Sustainable Development Goal says that grow inclusively, okay? Growing inclusively means that almost everybody should have his fair share of the national, you know, cake. So it turns that through social interventions, we can send our growth to almost everybody. So you can feel the growth in your house through education. And you know, the ripple effect of education in the long term is enormous. The nation benefit, the households also what? Benefit. Of course, if we should go by Agri's statement. Now, if you take all this, put them together, you get to know that at the time of introduction of this policy, we could have taken a different dimension. We have two ways. We could have financially, we could have taken two ways. One of them is to forget about paying the child's school fees or paying the child's education now. Empower the parents for them to get jobs, for them to be able to afford their wards, fees, pay for their kids' education. Whilst they are working, the parents are working, you can tax them and divert the funds for other things. We did not go by that direction. Because when it happens like that, we might realize the growth, but it will not be inclusive. But the government objective, I presume, is to make sure that the growth is realized across board. So therefore, we go by all inclusive, right? Taking the free SHS to all across board. And in the end, we should realize that. And how do we finance that? Strategically, we know only 40% are captured in the tax net in terms of
I don't know if it's a fair question to ask you, right. But I mean, on such a policy, could you have said, listen, I mean, I'm paying for your tuition, but if you want your child to be a boarder, then look, the boarding is up to you.
You take care of that
you
beyond a certain
because even in the advanced countries that they have free schooling, they don't give you free boarding, and they have a much bigger GDP to play with. But you get free boarding. You have free day schools. If you want to go boarding,
that's very good. But then in the end, let's look at it this way. Policies are driven by two different forces. One is political force. The other is economic force. Now, the politician promises you, they don't want to leave anything out of that promise because it breaches trust. They don't want anything of mistrust from the populace. So in the end, they go for it. Whether it makes economic sense or it does not make economic sense, they are pushing for it. Now, their hands are dipped in there. And remember, when the president came, he said he's in a hurry to implement some of the things he promised. So once the hands are in there, let's find a way to, sustain it. And the only way we can sustain it, I can tell you, it won't be through, Heritage Fund out of the petroleum revenue. Neither is it going to be any other source through taxes that we can finance these social policies.
Through taxes. Two certain things that are certain in life is death and taxes. Whether you like it or not, they will happen. But overall, our economics are saying it's not bad. It looks like it's in the right direction. We'll just have to swallow the little bit of increases that have come. And let's pray that as we swallow it, the end results and what the money is going to be used for will be useful. I want to say thank you so much to Dr. Lord Mensah and Dr. Eric Osei Esibe, and to you at home. The number is 024 366 2001. 024 366 2001. On Friday, you don't want to miss the interview with the Azuma Nelson. Very humble, absolutely humble, and very revealing interview. So tomorrow 9 p.m. definitely want to tune in. Friday at 9 p.m. We're back to do this all over again. Thank you so much for watching. Tomorrow 9 p.m. definitely want to tune in. Friday at 9 p.m. We're back to do this all over again. Thank you so much for watching. Tomorrow 9 p.m. definitely want to tune in. Friday at 9 p.m. We're back to do this.